Hello ladies, it's Mr. O'Sullivan. Today we're going to be looking at lesson 4-8b, factoring using difference of two squares, extra practice. I just wanted to say very sorry in advance that I can't be in school this week, but I should be back by Tuesday. I should be back by Tuesday. Today you'll be doing a quick ed puzzle based off of what you did yesterday. It'll be based off what you did yesterday, which it looked like most of you understood, and then you'll be doing a quick delta math. Today's learning target is I can factor a binomial by using the dots or the difference of two squares method. And below you'll have a chart of your perfect squares for the numbers 1 to 30. So remember, these are the numbers that need to appear in our expressions. And then these are the numbers that appear in our parentheses. Okay? So these questions I pulled right from Delta Math. So these are Delta Math problems. So just give you the heads up. These are the level 1 Delta Math problems, and then these are the level 2 Delta Math problems. Okay, so the questions. 1 second. The questions to ask yourself to determine if you are factoring in dots is if you have a GCF. None of the examples today will have a GCF. We'll save those for when I get back on Tuesday. Are there two terms? Now, when I say two terms, one term, one term, one term, one term, one term, one term. Those are all two-termed examples. Just because I have 4 and an x squared and 81 and a y squared, that does not make this 4 terms. It still is 2 terms. One term, one term. Is there a subtraction sign? And then are both terms perfect squares? So let's factor each of these expressions using the dots technique. The first example says 64 minus 121x squared. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm not sure if I mentioned it in yesterday's video since it was from last year, is whenever I have two terms and I know it's a dot, I immediately just do two sets of parentheses and I call it a double bubble. Now I got to fill in my bubbles. So I look at my first term and it says 64. I have to ask myself, what makes 64? Well, if I look up here, it's an 8. So I'm going to do 8 and 8, and now I'm done with it. Now I need to ask myself, what makes a minus? Well, it's a plus and a minus. Now I need to ask myself, what makes a 121? Well, if I look up here, it's an 11, because 11 times 11 is 121. Now I look at my x squared. It's nice and easy. I just split it up, and I put an x and an x. This is my final answer. Number 2, a little easier. I have x squared minus 49. I immediately do a double bubble. I ask myself, what makes x squared? Well, it's x. I ask myself, what makes a minus? Well, it's a plus and a minus. And then I ask myself, what makes 49? I go up here. 7 times 7 is 49. So that's how I do dots. I basically take each and every single part of each term and I ask myself, blank times blank is that, blank times blank is that. Try to do number 3 all by yourself and tell me what your final answer is. Here's how you would do number 3. I immediately approach by doing a double bubble. I take it apart. What makes 16? 4 and 4. What makes that minus sign? Plus a minus. What makes 81? 9 and 9. And then what makes x squared? X and x. And that's your final answer. Now the level 2 problems are a little different because it's very variable focused. It's not as much coefficient focused. If I look at my first binomial, I do my double bubble. What makes 4? 2 and 2. What makes x squared? x and x. I now have a plus minus. What makes 81? 9 and 9. And then what makes y squared? Y and y. So that is my final answer. Now, when I get to an example like number 5, where I have x squared minus y to the 6th, that gets a little tricky. And I understand that gets tricky. So here's what Miss Townsend and I recommend whenever you're dealing with variables. Just divide by 2. So if I want to find out what makes x squared, I just take my exponent and I divide by 2. So what is 2 divided by 2? 1. So I will have an x to the first and an x to the first, but the thing is, we know x to the first is just x. Now, what makes my minus? Plus minus. Now I look at my 6. What is 6 divided by 2? 3. So I have y to the third, y to the third. And that is my final answer. Try to do number 6 all by yourself. So I do my double bubble. Y to the 10th, I divide by 2, I get y to the 5th. X to the 6th, divide by 2, I get x to the 3rd. Now I do my plus minus. What makes 900? Well, it's 30. And then what makes z to the 12th? Well, divide by 2. I get z6. And that's my final answer. Now, please complete your delta math practice on difference of 2 squares. I also put an x game few in there and then factor trinomials. If you have any questions, email myself or Miss Townsend. Have a great day.